What's up, y'all? Welcome to today's video, and today we're going to be doing SB skate supports, which is my skate supports that you submit to me on Instagram, and I'm going to help you personally with your skating. So make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's SeanBrown99. So for this skate support, we're really going to be focusing on tray flips. I basically just sorted through and got some tray flip clips that people have sent in, and I'm just going to be going over, how to fix some certain issues or, some common issues that might pop up. And before I start, if you notice, the sponsor of this video is myself. I'm just wearing my SB apparel. If you want to pick up any of that, you don't have to, but if you do, you can click the card in the top right corner here. It's SeanBrownSkating.stormv.com. Link is at the top of the description and in that card. So for the first one I got in, really all I noticed about it was just that the person in this was just really not committed. They actually just told me, like, is this an actual issue or is it just a commitment issue? So if you look closely, they're getting really close to the tray flip. The only thing they're missing is just not putting their back foot on. And usually sometimes the issue that comes with this is that some people, like, their back foot may go straight to the ground, but it wasn't for this case. So if you look at it closely, the person doing this actually has their back foot high enough in the air where it's above the board, where it can commit to the board after and land on it, but they're just not doing that. And that's really just, just a mind game you gotta play. But I really just recommend committing, because even if you fall, if you're scared of falling, once you stick it, you put both feet on it, and if you slip, I swear you're gonna get more confident and you're gonna wanna land the trick since you got so close. So if you ever get close to it like that, just go ahead and commit to it. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it. So for this next one, I noticed 3 things that really stuck out to me. So the first one is, if you look closely, as they're doing the tray flip, they're kind of opening up their shoulders like front side. So they're almost like a front side 180. So they're opening up their shoulders that way. And that can really mess with the trick because you may not align with the board perfectly when it does the last part of the rotation when you're trying to land it. And that's gonna make it a little hard to land. So really just make sure you try to keep your shoulders parallel with the board. I give this tip a lot to people trying other tricks too, like ollies or kickflips. I do this thing where I crouch down, I cross my arms like an X, and then when I go up, I make a T pose, and it really just kind of helps you to force you keep your shoulders straight. So your hips may open up, but keeping your shoulders straight will probably help with that. So the second thing I noticed is that this, the scoop is pretty good to start off with, but I think it's just a little bit slow. Now if you go, a little slow at scoops on tray flips, it may be hard to actually get your back foot back on, and also may not have the full rotation when you're trying to do that too. So really just make sure you have a really quick scoop with your back foot. You want to make sure it's just a really fluid, quick motion, because if you go too slow, it's going to be really hard to land it based on the rotation and getting your foot to come back to it when it does that whole rotation in the air. Also, you want to make sure that the board can actually do the full rotation in the air, because sometimes if you scoop too slow, it may not do the whole rotation. And then lastly, one thing I noticed is that during the tray flip in this video, I noticed that the person kind of didn't bring their back knee high enough. They tucked it up a little bit, but if you look closely, it kind of goes straight to the ground before the board finishes its rotation, which is going to make it almost impossible to land. So you really have to make sure that you're tucking both your knees up so that both your feet can get above the board. So then after that, you could just commit to it. So those are the things I noticed with that tray flip. If you have similar issues, make sure you take those tips into mind. So on this next one, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint what it is, but when they told me at the time, it's just that they couldn't get the full flip of the tray flip. Now this can happen for various reasons. One of the reasons I like to point out is that you may not be scooping enough under and getting your back foot under the scoop. So you want to make sure you hang your toes off enough where your toes can kind of curl the edge of that tail so you can really get under it. Because actually the scoop kind of forms some of the flip of the tray flip. So just keep that in mind. If you get your foot more under, you might be able to get the board to, scoop a little bit during that tray flip, if that makes sense. Now another thing could be you're not flicking hard enough, or it could be the way your front foot is positioned where it's not catching the board as much. So really just try to angle it where you might have to test around, different foot positions, but try to get in a way where you can flick it a little more, or, just flick harder during that process. It's really just kind of trial and error. You got to try out a whole bunch of different stuff to see what fixes it. But if you're getting the rotation like this person is, then most of the time it's mostly going to be just are you curling your toes enough under the tray flip, or are you flicking hard enough? But what's funny is I actually kind of got to the skate support late, and the person actually landed it, and you can see that clip right here. So congrats to you for landing that. Alright, so for this next one, I noticed a couple things. So first, the person's actually kind of like popping a little more than scooping, and what happens with that is that the board's going to go super high, as you're noticing in the video. So make sure you're kind of scooping more than you're popping so it can stay lower to the ground. Also, make sure when you're doing it, like I said before, try to do a fast scoop. You want to make sure that, you know, the board gets enough rotation while you're in the air, and it'll help you get your back foot on the board faster too. And then also, like I mentioned in some of the other tips, make sure that when you're doing the tray flip with your back foot, you want to jump high enough and tuck your knee up so that you're actually able to put it back onto the board. Now that kind of goes into the other tip of, you know, making sure you're scooping fast enough to make sure you actually have time to do that. But make sure you're actually tucking your knee up high enough so you can actually jump on the board. Now, one thing I noticed that if you actually look closely, sometimes the person's front foot isn't flicking at it hard enough, and sometimes it's not even touching it. So if that's happening, make sure you also try to flick a little bit harder, get your foot in a position that will help you do that. Sometimes if you need more flick, what helps me is instead of going like a 45-degree angle, it's actually angling your foot more inwards so that it catches the board more on that flick. But otherwise, you know, at least the person is forming the tray flip. That's all you really need. It's just gonna take some time practice. But you really just gotta keep trying this trick. This is a tough one. Just keep the tips I have in mind, and you'll get it soon as long as you put in the time practice, trust me. Like, that's actually what this logo is. This was my first tray flip that I've ever done. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to send a skate support in, my Instagram is SeanBrown99. Just know there's a lot of people sending in these requests, and I'm a busy person. I'm a senior in college right now. It's my last semester. So only send in a skate support right now if you really, really, really need help and you think like what your issue is not mentioned in one of my Why You Can't videos. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much for the support, guys. You guys are freaking awesome. I think we just hit 59,000 subscribers recently, so thank you so much for that. Otherwise than that, just make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on those post notifications so you can be notified when the next video goes up. But just thank you so much, guys. Peace.